Hello, welcome to Uncommunity episode where I sit with community builders and creators to talk about community building. Today we have a very special guest. He is a Twitter sensation and he's been doing a lot of work in community building around no code and build in public. So I don't want to introduce. I mean, he'll give you a bio, or I mean, he'll give you a introduction himself. So welcome to Uncommunity, KP. So excited to have you on this show
Thank
finally.
you, Mohammed. I appreciate it. Thanks for a great intro and setting me up for failure like that. But um, so I don't know about Twitter sensation, but definitely I'm a huge fan of build in public. Definitely a huge proponent of no code,
Mhm.
and I've been building, in public since 2018. For the longest time I was a idea guy. For 6-7 years I worked in corporate, various corporate companies, Fortune 500 companies,
Mhm.
in their product teams, and I always felt that I was missing out from being in the arena, if you will, of startups. And I just watched from the sidelines because I didn't know how to code, or I had to go harass my technical founder friends or developer friends. And I was just frustrated with this. And so in 2018, I remember distinctly buying a book called Atomic Habits by James Clear. Some of you may have read it. And it talks about this concept of identity. And and I remember reading that chapter and literally writing in my journal that I am a maker starting today. And at the time, I had no evidence to call myself a maker. I didn't ship anything myself. I didn't build anything. I didn't know how to code. But I just literally wrote on a piece of paper that I am a maker today. And my job from now going forward is to gather and gain evidence to
Mhm.
the world that I am, in fact, a maker. So since then, I learned no code. I figured out some of these platforms, taught myself Webflow, Bubble, some of these no code platforms. And I
Mhm.
shipped 8 no code products since then. And all that led to September, where I got this amazing job offer from On Deck to be their head of no code fellowship. So I'm excited.
Oh, that's quite a journey, KP. Let's talk about Atomic Habits. So I've been binge like listening to like James Clear podcast episodes
Yes.
on like
Yes.
everywhere he went to. He's amazing. I've not read the like
Amazing.
book, but it's kind of like habit thing. But
Right.
to read a book, like I have to get that book also, like to be very very honest. So let's talk about that book, right? So what about like what happened in? I mean, like did you started projects, 8 no code products, right?
Yes.
Just after like, I mean, you read the book and you're like pumped up, like I want to do it. So what was that point of what do you say, like what was that point where you said, okay, I want to do this, I want to get started as of now?
Right. So I think after I finished the book, a bulb went off that I think I've come to a realization that um, greatness is not a one-time stint. It's not like a quick little hack. It takes series of iterations, um, and you can get there by being 1% better every day, right? So I think my focus went from trying to come up with grand, like startup VC-backed ideas, like the next Instagram or Snapchat or Loom or whatever, like these big ideas, to figuring out like, hey, if I can actually narrow my focus and scale down, dramatically scale down to like something that's simply achievable within a week, 2 weeks, and but basically that would teach me the whole process of making and shipping in public. And there's several steps to actually launch a product, as you may know, right? Like it's not that you have an idea and you build, like you write code or you build a product and you like
Yeah.
suddenly you have an audience. No, it doesn't work like that. There's several stages. You have to get your alpha users, you have to get your beta customers, and then you have to test, and then validate, do landing pages, and maybe go on Product Hunt, go on Indie Hackers. So all these several stages, I think a lot of people, a lot of makers, founders actually skip them, and they
Mm-hmm.
try to just fantasize, including me. When I was just like that, just to fantasize, hey, I have an idea, I built something, let me raise some money. So these three key milestones, are over indexed in society, and everything else that goes in between them are extremely under indexed. And to me, that was my biggest like awakening, that, hey, if I have to be a better maker, better founder, I cannot just hope for these magical moments in life. I have to get better 1% a day and break down my day into my habits and go after it, each day. So the book helped me really, really, in the sense that it helped me that you have to focus on your daily habits, the things that you can control, not on these grand outcomes, which will inevitably come if you control your daily actions.
Yeah. That totally makes sense. I mean, success is not overnight, right? Like whatever you're
Right.
doing, it's not overnight. So you have to increment or increase 1% of whatever you're doing every day. Just be better
Right.
1%. Like you don't be better 100% the next day. Just be better
Exactly.
1%, and then magic happens, kind of thing.
Right.
So let's talk about your products, right? So you have been building 8 products, and the one that got I'm sure like others were amazing as well. What is the idea behind Cuppa.io, right? So it's about meeting one to one, and it's a community based approach. So
Right.
COVID hit and people can't go offline. People can't have
Right.
coffee, like sit in a cafe and have a coffee, right? So
Right.
what happened? What was the idea behind that?
So the domains actually get Cuppa.io. I couldn't get Cuppa.io, but it goes on to show also how the domain hunt is ridiculous. It doesn't matter if you build a good product, people will come to you no matter what. So no, I think it was, so I distinctly remember, again, like it was March, um, may have been March 13th actually. We've been, especially, so I live in Atlanta. I've been watching the news, a little bit, and then I realized, okay, we're going to go into a lockdown. Like something's going to happen here in the US, and we're going to go into lockdown. Uh, and so I felt that I have a lot of friends on Twitter, and I have a lot of startup friends in Atlanta. I figured, what if we can't meet in person for like a couple months, 3 months, 6 months. And I wondered if there would be a platform where you could have video coffee dates, with mutual opt-in. And the trick is actually getting mutual opt-in, because you have a lot of people on Twitter that you may want to reach out to, or they may want to reach out to. But there's this sense of awkwardness because is this person willing to have a video chat with me or not, right? Some may not. But what if there was a platform where consent was default? Like people wanted to have coffees, and that's why they signed up for Cuppa.
Yeah.
That's why they signed up for this platform. And so I built this, I had this idea, and I didn't even think too much about it. I didn't even look at competing products. I didn't even look at what this is. I just wanted it to be a social experiment with just my friends and people that I know on Twitter. And I used Twitter as my go-to-market, which in retrospect is the smartest thing I could have done that day, because Lunch Club, and there's another big competitor in the space, which at the time I didn't realize they were also not online. They were just offline at the time, completely physical, in-person events, in-person lunches. And I just went after it. And so I built a quick landing page. There was no product. And just landing page on Webflow, and I launched it on Twitter, on my Twitter. I think I had about 250 signups immediately. And that was the highest amount of signups I got for any of my no-code product launches on Twitter. And a lot of people were hitting me up saying like, "Kippy, this is brilliant. This is great. Like, this is probably your best idea so far." And I realized that there's a sense of quality and quantity of feedback that I'm getting that I never got. And so the first alpha version, the V1, I built in 4 days, was a Wizard of Oz, a man behind the curtain like thing, which was completely like me being the matchmaker, using Airtable and just Gmail, and like just doing this thing myself, right? So I set up 50 coffee dates on that week myself, and
That was all manually,
between
is it?
all manual, completely manual. So it was not even no code. It's like no product. It was just manual. Me with maybe Webflow a little bit. With Airtable, and people kept giving me great feedback. They were saying, "Oh my God, this was so great!" And we had a great chat with. It's also interesting because sort of like if this person talks community all the time, like in this case, let's say Mohammed, right? And I have another friend like Joe Brown who also talks community all the time. I'm like, oh, what if I can connect these two, right?
Yeah.
So it was that, what if I can connect these two at scale?
Mhm.
And people like people raved about this on Twitter and took screenshots of their actual cuppas, coffees, and that was V1. And so, and then I think I kept getting DMs from investors and from like co-founders, like everybody saying, like, Kippy, I want to be part of this. This is cool. And the V2, finally, one of my good friends in Atlanta, I called him and said, look, I'm getting all this interest. I think we need to build a product here. Will you be willing to partner with me? And before I finished my sentence, he said, yes.
Oh,
Of course, yes, KP. He's a CTO. And he's like, of course, I want to do this. And so we built the V2 using Bubble as the platform. So
yeah. Yeah, that's a
yeah.
nice interesting. It's like a real use cases of do things that don't scale, right?
Yes.
Get
Yes.
50 people like do things manually,
Yes.
and then suddenly okay, there is a traction. I think we need to kind of
Right.
double down on what's working.
I'm a
Right.
huge proponent of do things. I actually built a site called dothingsthatadontskill.com.
Oh
So
wow. So
I'm
you have
a,
a lot of domain names, like
yeah.
some serious domain
See,
names.
lots of domains. I know. My wife's always like, you're lavishly spending all this on crappy domains. You know.
Yeah.
So
So let's put your Twitter and your built-in audience approach. Not built-in public, because you had like 250 signups with your one announcement, right? Which
right,
like for most of the people that don't happen. And also
right,
like in our previous thing you mentioned like indie hackers, product hunt, all those
yeah,
platforms. And like what happens with a maker or someone is they do things and they just launch it on product hunt. I don't know if
right.
it's a good way or a bad way, but let's just talk about your like your Twitter audience. Like how do we go about building an audience, and what was your story behind that? Like
I actually, it's funny that you ask because I didn't really have a great sense of intention behind building a Twitter audience in the beginning. I was just trying to, um, you know, I was just trying to share my story, like these products I'm building, or interesting products on the internet with other people. And I kind of built maybe like 1,000 people. Actually, I started at 250. I remember like starting at 250 or 300 in 2018. I really didn't have any followers because I didn't have anything to share, and I was a lurker. I was just like consuming other people's content, liking, sharing, and retweeting. Um, but ever since I started doing no code and like showing my screenshots of the prototypes I'm building or whatever, I think I attracted a little bit of maker audience, right? Founders, makers, a little bit, but still I didn't have like a lot until maybe I had like a 1,500 or so until last year. But July this year, I remember I realized the power of having an audience, and I actually wrote a blog post about that. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. Like, this is important, like social capital. Like, this is very, very important. Having an audience is so important. I mean, I knew this in theory. Of course, we all know it. Like, I know you know it too. But we intellectually know it, but we don't experientially get it, right? When Cuppa took off, I really got it. I realized that, oh my God, the power of having an audience, before you even have another like sensational launch or product, is so incrementally useful. So I became much more intentional on Twitter. So since July, I just doubled down, and my average went up. I think I was tweeting like 4 or 5 a day back in the day, and I went up to 30 now. I'm not even worrying about output. I'm crushing the input,
uh-huh.
uh, because to me, it's an input game, right? It's clearly an input game. You see David Perels, you see Jack Butchers, and they're all crushing it with the input. And of course, the output will catch up, right? It'll take some time for people to understand that, hey, he's not winging it. Like he or she, this person is serious, and they're consistent. So Matthew Kobach,
Yeah.
talks about social media all the time. Jack Butcher talks about, build once, sell twice, all the time. David Perl talks about the writing all the time, but they're consistently, prolific about that.
Talking
So
about
I
it.
realized I need to be the same.
Yeah, yeah, that's very interesting. I mean like you bring the word consistent, right?
Yeah.
like, I mean, you have to be that person kind of thing where like people take you seriously. uh,
Yeah.
you can't do that. Like, let's just say, like, when you started, like, you just had a small amount of audience and you just said, okay, I have to do it consistently, and now you have like
Right.
this many like numbers, or like any numbers, right? Like, it
Right.
doesn't happen just within a
Overnight,
day or
yeah.
two.
And it's funny. I genuinely think that the world hasn't caught up with me with numbers. I only have 5,600 or something. It's just nothing compared to like David Perros, of the world, or Jack.
Yep.
So I think I was trying to say, I feel like, the reality and the world hasn't still caught up with me, and the output hasn't caught up to my inputs so far, uh, because I only have 5,600 people following me on Twitter, so it's nothing. Like, you see David Perro or like Jack Butcher, like any of these people, they have 100Ks and 200Ks, so there's a long way to go, and I feel I'm a rookie. I'm just an underdog still, and there's a long way to go, and I have to be prolific even more for the longest time. So but the results, the intangible results, are already here. Like the fact that I got on Deck's job wouldn't have happened if I didn't have that 5,000 people rooting for me. So I'm already grateful.
Yeah, yeah, that's solid. So I've read this famous articles where they say you just need not 100, just 1,000 true fans kind of
Yeah,
thing, right?
yeah.
And that's, I mean,
Kevin
that's
Kelly.
very
Yeah,
incredible if you just have that. Like, I mean, even building an audience, or let's say building a community, let's say, right? You like, it's not about scale; it's about like the value that you are getting of a
yeah,
small portion of members.
for sure.
Yeah. So, okay, I think, okay, my point is like, you mentioned there was no intention of whatever you are doing, right?
Right.
So because things just happened, right? Like, I've seen like a lot of great communities that are being built, like that are today they are big, but when they started, there was no, like, there was no goal or like thing in mind that we want to be a great community, right? So
Right.
let's talk about that, where like, building an audience, or having a community is a mode. Like, do you think, like, is it very important or necessary, or is there a success factor? Like, the audience and the community, you need to have that to, like, which relates to, or which you like, adds to your success.
Huh. That's a great question. I think it like all great things, it's a paradox, right? I mean, there's no easy answer for that one. But um, I'll, from my personal experience, I think you cannot be desperate about having a community. That is the single most wrong way to go about it. If you know the playbook that somebody told you that, hey, you need to have a community, and you woke up and you're like, okay, I'm going to desperately try to create a community in the next 45, 60, 70 days, you're going to lose, because it's about people, and they're not dumb. They can sense it. The other way is, hey, I'm going to build a great community on the internet in 10 years. And if you start that way and think about, hey, what can I do today? What value can I add today? And if you just think about the micro increments of value each day, like 5 tweets, or, one video a day, one blog post a week or a month,
Mhm.
that will add up really quick. And this is true. This has happened so many times in my life. The 90% of my outcomes, of my success or whatever, came in the last 10% of the journey. So it is so unfair, because when you start out, it looks like freaking like a whole mountain that you have to climb, right? But it almost feels like you have to climb and climb, and only like 10 baby steps a day, maybe 20 a day, up to a point where suddenly you'll discover a freaking elevator. And
Yeah.
then you're like, oh my God. And that's why I felt like I literally discovered an elevator to the mountain. And I'm like, oh my God. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't persist, until the inflection point. So nobody can tell you what is the inflection point. At what point will leverage serve you, right? That's why I advocate like building leverage and building in public, because you just have to keep building and building, not with the desperation, not with the expectation that someone's gonna like reply to you or make an intro to a VC, but because you love sharing your story, and you're like appealing to that one kid who may be lost today, and maybe your particular story may have inspired him or her. So if you can get yourself hyped up and get to 10, 20 baby steps a day to a certain height, I'll bet you everybody else will pull you up, because there's so many givers in the world, and I try to be one, and I try to be one especially because I've been benefited by the kindness and the give first mentality of the world. There's so many, Silicon Valley, New York City, they're everywhere, on Twitter, on I don't know much about LinkedIn, but there's so many givers who are willing to lift you up. If first you can lift yourself up for a while. That is the hard part. And that is the part that is the solo journey. It's a single player game. And for the longest time, I suffered with that lack of that mindset, because I was like, why is nobody else lifting me up? Because the TV and the movies and society, everything shows that, oh, somebody gets a lift off right second day or third day or fourth day. It doesn't happen like that. You need to at least spend like a year and a half lifting yourself up.
Yeah.
So the trick is just do simple things. Don't do crazy, heavy, hard. Don't try to build the next unbundling Reddit. Don't try to build the next Reddit. Build a newsletter, or build a, write one thread a day. Who cares? Enjoy, have fun. So that's the hard part. People want dramatic results in unbelievably quick timelines. It's impossible. Like, there's no hack.
That just happens in movies. Yeah.
Right. And it's not sustainable too. You're not proud of it too, right? I mean, if you got, a one-time hit quick, you're never going to be a legend. You have to have the consistency game figured out before you get that glorious success. So it's so much better for the big results to come later.
Yeah, man, that I love it. Like that's amazing. Don't be desperate. Like, and the point that you made, do it for yourself. Like, just believe in you, right? Don't think about something else. Like your 90% of the success of the outcomes will come in the very later part.
It's inevitable. I think we live in this world of abundance. Like, we have to realize, like, this is the greatest time to be alive, to be a human being. And I say this about like being in America, but I think it extends to anywhere in the world. Like, this is the single most greatest time. The fact that you and I could connect over a Twitter DM and have a Zoom call. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Like, our ancestors would like give up anything for this privilege to form a bond, thousands of miles apart. I don't have to get up. Like, I'm in my freaking underwear. I'm not, but I don't even have to get up. You don't have to get up. You don't have to go outside. The technology is literally serving us in our palm right now. Literally, like every time I go open my Twitter, I look at it, and I'm like, it is literally a few taps on a glass screen that got me 5,000 people rooting for me when I got this on. Can you believe that? It's like the craziest, strangest, like acid-driven dream for our ancestors. If my grandfather knew that one day his grandson would get a dream job in Silicon Valley by tapping on an iPhone device, he would be like, "Get the hell out of here." Meanwhile, right? Like, meanwhile, he broke his back working in the sun and like in the fields. And come on, we're all like super blessed. That doesn't mean that we don't have our own sort of suffering. We do, but it's sort of coming up from our own insecurity. So we need to cut it out. We need to stop projecting our desperation, like quick results, and just take a step back and enjoy the process, So.
Man, I love it. Like, we need to leverage the technology, like, to be very
use it, serve you, not be a slave to the technology, right? So
So there's this movie that just recently came out, right? Like, the social dilemma, right? So it has so many bad things in it, but I mean, if you use it correctly, like, you are like, if you just know how to use that proper in a meaningful way, then you just like, you have that gold mine that you were looking for.
I think, what also it's also interesting. You mentioned the movie. I couldn't stay more than like 7 minutes in the movie. I had to like move on from Netflix, because see, I grew up in the 90s. I grew up in India, in Hyderabad. I grew up as the kid who fell in love with the power of technology. I'm an eternal optimist when it comes to technology empowering people around the world. I grew up in India. I grew up in a very, very lower middle class / poor family. We didn't even have a telephone. I remember I had to walk a mile, like 2-3 kilometers, to an STD booth, which if you recall,
Yeah, I've done
to
that.
make a
I've done that as well.
to make a phone call to my mother, who was living in Hyderabad at the time, and I was living in a village in Andhra Pradesh. Every day, not every day, like every week, maybe I could get 2 chances to talk to her on the telephone on the STD booth, to walk like 2 kilometers to get there. Like, are you kidding me? This is my own lifetime. Like, it looks like it's not. I'm not telling you a story of like 1965 India. This is literally my own lifetime when I was like 10-year-old boy in that village. So we've come a long way from where that was, and now I have in the palm of my hand, I have like everything. I have Udemy, I have YouTube. I can learn like the greatest secrets about anything, any text I want to read, I can read. And so I'm an eternal optimist when it comes to technology and the power it can do, but also I'm a pessimist from the sense that from listening to society's definition of what is right and what is wrong, right? I don't give a shit about people's opinion of what technology is like pervasive. They're like watching you. No one's watching you. Are you kidding me? Like, get out of your head. Like, no one's trying to like get into your computer screen and like watch what you're like. That's like bogus paranoia. And I mean, I say this every day in America, and it relates to everywhere in the world, that this is the golden era, and 2020 was a shit year for all of us, as you can sort of relate to it too. But this is also the spring of a new beginning. This is the blossoming of a new era, which we can define however you want. So
so I remember this tweet from Nawal when like so I mean, he's the philosopher kind of thing, right?
Yeah,
so
he
has this thing. Yeah, he has this thing where he say internet is like the lessons to learning. I don't remember where he said where like the resources are a lot on the internet. It's just the scarcity, just the thirst of learning something, right?
Knowledge.
Learning
And the patience, right?
yeah,
And the love. And I think if you sort of it's funny, man. I feel like we're all trained in a weird way in school systems or wherever to always perform for others. We're always like on the stage trying to dance and perform and convince others that we have talent. I feel I genuinely have no talent. I mean it. I don't have any talent. I have an abundance of curiosity and a love for what I do. That's it. Combined with these two and patience, you can go a long distance and collect a lot of trophies on the way. But the game is not about trophies, right? If you don't know cricket, I mean, I love playing cricket. I'm not playing anymore right now in the US, but man, what a fantastic game. I love the sport because it is about, when you are on the pitch, it is about just, watching the ball and just like Sehwag, right? Growing up, he had the grandest amount of fun playing cricket. Nobody could match how much fun he had. It didn't matter if it was a World Cup game, didn't matter if it was a Ranji game. He just had the greatest amount of fun. I feel like you should live your life like Sehwag lived
even
on that
during the
pitch.
test game he did like that.
Didn't give a shit. He didn't give a crap about anything. He made 300s in test cricket. And you were like, that was unreal. And he did it like it was nothing, right? I feel like we all could benefit if we literally, played a single player game. Like Nawal talks about all the time. He says, find something that you love doing where it might feel like work for everybody else, but for you it's play.
It's fun
And just play it. Yeah. And do it for the love of it. One. Second, see if there's any way you can actually benefit society with it, right? If I love tweeting, I love writing like short form content, I love talking podcasts, and I love building. Now, if I can combine all these skills and figure out a way, not immediately, not urgently, but in a grand scheme of things, if I can figure out a way that this can deliver value to people, that's it. I will get paid no matter what. Like that's how the rules are. So I think we're lost in this performance anxiety. We're trying to perform for others on the stages of the internet or wherever, and you're like, that's why the anxiety is coming from.
That's perfect. Right. So there's one more thing which like you mentioned, right? Like it's for like uh, get rich. So Nawal mentioned this as well. Get rich quick scheme is for
Yeah.
like there's no get rich quick scheme,
Right.
right? It
Somebody else
relates
is getting
to
rich on your back. Yeah.
exactly. It so relates with like what everyone is trying to do and what anyone wants to do, right? Like
Right.
if you want a result tomorrow, like 100% success, that's a
Yeah.
get rich quick scheme, and
Right.
it is not going to happen, right? It's
Right.
like a slow 1% game every day. Just improve your skill
Exactly.
and
Exactly. And
don't
see,
try to, yeah.
right. I think it was Warren Buffett who said, everybody can get rich if they just waited longer and they were more patient, right? Nobody wants to get rich slower. That's the thing. There are so many playbooks out there in the world where you can simply get rich slower, but nobody wants that, right? But people want get rich quick, like by in 30 days, like 60 days, And so that's the irony there.
Yeah,
But yeah,
yeah, man. So I guess we have covered like how do you build a leverage on the internet or something like that, right?
right.
What what is community to you? And when you started in 2018, what was the scene, and like what's the scene now, right? A community building, like, or someone who's just getting started, who wants to get started in community management.
The scene has definitely shifted towards being more favorable now. Um, with like our shelter in place and lockdowns this year, I think our social bonds have taken a beating, and people are now wanting and longing for digital connections. And there's no longer a judgment between digital and real life connections. I actually genuinely value my online friends just as much as I value my physical friends. They're the same to me, because the amount of time I spend now, on Zoom calls with them or FaceTimes or whatever, it's the same as the amount spending on with like the coffees that I have with my real friends. So this is a great time to build community now, because there's an intrinsic motivation from people to want to belong, to want to connect with others over shared interests. So the ones that are winning right now, the communities that are working really well, they unite people around shared interests, right? I tried to do this with Cuppa, where I I seeded the community with a lot of no-code makers and founders, people that I knew, uh, and the shared interests just became no-code, right? It was so much easier for people to connect with each other when they both know they use Webflow or they use Bubble, and they can just geek out about Bubble for hours. So shared interests is the new unifying factor. The other thing is shared rituals. I feel like one of the underlying elements that doesn't get talked about much is the value and the power of ritual. In modern society, we don't have any rituals. Everyone's like their own, right? But great bonds are formed over predictability and rituals. So I have been running a mastermind group in the US for about 2 years now, and we meet every Friday 4 p.m. period. Like we meet whether we are in person or it's virtual. We all show up. It's kind of like going to church, and all of us um, get together for 1 hour, and we just talk about how our week went, what we're gonna do next week, and what was our favorite product we found on the internet. It could be Product Hunt or on wherever, Indie Hackers or Hacker News. And now we have a backlog of I think 600 products, because there's so many things we find,
Yeah.
and it just made us sharper in terms of understanding the landscape. Like we know what are online what are like virtual online conferences or conference tools, what are fintech products, and we know everything because we've been watching every week. And I think that also brought us all together because there's a sense of predictability. Where will KP be at 4 p.m. on Fridays? Everybody knows in the group.
Mhm.
And so I think combined with these two, community is, I feel like, having a new breath of fresh air this year. And there will be more, as you can tell from the internet. There's so many. I mean, Clubhouse is a community, right?
Yeah.
They're a huge community. Um, I mean, On Deck is a community. They're having a baller year this year with the community. So it's this is the time, man.
Mhm. Yeah, that's very interesting, right? Because on deck or Clubhouse or any product that is coming, Cuppa, like it's all someone like you're just trying to bring people together, and
Yes.
in a different ways, right? Someone is doing it in
Right.
voice, someone is doing it in Zoom, like it
Right.
doesn't matter. And also, yeah, 0 to it was 0 to 1, right? Sorry,
Yeah. 0 to 1 makers.
yeah,
Yeah.
I've had a chat with Drew as well. Like he's also
Oh,
from
yeah.
yeah, he had like yeah,
Drew from
yeah,
Trends VC. Yep.
yeah. So so I had one like just normal chat for some of his report, because I've been
Right.
loving his like content. Like I mean,
Yeah.
and that's also a great example of like doing it on a consistent basis.
Yeah.
And that's not your first product that just like started or what sex is.
Yeah. Drew did so many things before that. In fact, so Drew is part of my mastermind group, 0 to 1. And so we know all the shit that he built before Trends VC. We saw everything he built.
Yeah.
Um, and, we, so the funny thing is like there's no point of time where oh my god, this is it, this is going to be a breakout product. There'll never be a time like that. It's only in retrospective. So when I look back now, I can say, oh yeah, Cuppa is a pretty big phenomenon in my life. But when I did it March 13th, actually I showed the first landing page to the group on Friday, and Drew saw it, and Wit and like a lot of my mastermind group friends saw it, and they all thought, wow, it's cool, it's great, you should ship it. The only thing we say to each other when we see something like like an interesting new idea is that it's cool, it's promising, you should ship it. Which is the greatest words to be said to a maker, because you're giving him belief capital. You're literally enforcing belief into what this person is trying to sort of make. And a lot of people actually do the opposite. When someone's showing you like a very initial idea, which is like very nascent, it's forming, it's a like tiny little embryo, it's people like dunk on that person and like show them the flaws, like almost it's like a freaking roasting phenomenon, like a
Yeah.
roast battle.
Just
And you like,
demotivated in the first conversation.
yeah, and if it doesn't even ever see the goddamn light. So what happens is they don't even ship it, so the rest of the world doesn't find out, and the real core passionate group of users this person was trying to target will never arrive, because it never was in the play in the world. And that's something that I wish more communities took seriously, is the way they give feedback. And I don't know what is it about, people love like, give me the harsh feedback. Why do you want harsh feedback, man? Like, can you take it? Don't do that. The moment, when do you need harsh feedback? There's a time for it, like maybe 2 3 4 months later, when you have a more refined product. Now you have to think about positioning, marketing, go to market, then yes, then. But in the early stage, like day one, like, are you kidding me? So when Trends happened, Drew brought Trends to us as an, again, like he didn't even have Trends.vc domain. It was basically on his personal website. It was a page, and he wrote a report on cloud kitchens. I remember, if you go look it up, you'll see 001 Trends says cloud kitchens, and it's the same format. It had these bullet points and these emojis, and like, it was a very succinct report. We all looked at it, and frankly, we all like, wow, it's great, awesome, man, ship it. But one person, Drew will acknowledge this story. Edmund is part of our group, screamed from the screen. He was not in the group in person. He was on Zoom. He was screaming, saying, "Drew, do not delay the ship this shit on Monday. You gotta ship it. This is great. Ship it."
Wow.
So now, of course, Trends is like a viral hit, and everybody's like, he's making 25K MRR per month, whatever. Everyone's like, of course, it's a breakout hit. No, nobody knew that on day one. I can't say that I knew the Trends was gonna blow up. The only thing that I credit to Trend's success, from day one to now, is the fact that Drew was freaking consistent. He went after it every single week, sometimes twice a week. Now he's about 35, maybe 36 reports.
Yeah.
So it's a combination of belief capital and consistency. These two are important.
I mean, that's a very like great way. I mean, we are at the very end, and that's a very great closing point, right?
Yeah,
Just start lifting up people, right? Don't be
yeah,
harsh or don't be negative, because the moment you become a negative, like it sits in the person's mind saying,
yeah.
that's it. I'm failed. Like I have failed,
Right,
right? But that's not the point. Like you like I think don't be that person. I think that's my point, I guess. Like don't be that
right,
person who says, hey, this is not going to work.
right. See, I think there's a delicate balance between being negative or being positive, right? You have to be authentic, right? Your authenticity has to shine, which means if you felt like you loved that report, jump up and scream like Edmund did. And I didn't actually feel that way. That day, when I saw the first report, I was like, it's cool, it's good. But I didn't like dunk on him, right? The thing is, we need to realize when I showed Cuppa, a lot of people like immediately dunked on it, and I was like, guys, like hold your horses. It's just an embryo, just a very tiny idea. But nobody in our mastermind group dunked on it. Everybody in the group said it's an interesting idea. KP, try it. The thing is, nobody can tell you what it will amount to 6 months down the line. Only the audience, the market can tell you.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to kill all your ideas in your lab, like you're screwed from the beginning. So make sure you have people who you trust, maybe 5 or 6 of them, who are your lab partners, who will evaluate something objectively without getting too negative and judgmental. But there should not also be yes men. That's also insincere, right? If someone's like, anytime you show something to them, they're like, oh my god, this is so cool. No, you should not be. You should not
Yeah.
be a yes man, and you should not be a cynic. You should be the delicate balance between them and be authentic.
Yeah, yeah. That's a great way to end. So, where can KP? Like, thanks a lot for coming on. Like, personally, some great points. Like, I have I loved it. Right. So,
Thank you.
where can our listeners find you online?
Yes. So everything that I'm doing about building public is at buildingpublic.xyz. The site that I'm building is going to be a content hub to celebrate, folks, founders, and makers building in public, and share some insights and interviews. And my personal Twitter, where you'll find a lot of the ramblings that I just talked about now, is at this is KP underscore.
All right.
Feel free
So
to
you know
DM
where to
me.
find KP,
Yes.
guys. So go find him, go follow him today, and start building in public.
Awesome.
Yeah. All right. That's the end of our episode, and